Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today our Data Plus Women event in Zurich. What is Data Plus Women? Data Plus Women is a networking group in order to promote women working with or around data. Our objective is to have women on stage. So please contact us in order to speak to our next event. So my name is Annabelle Rincon. I'm a visual analytics specialist. I'm leading the Tableau Center of Excellence at Vontobel. And together with Olivia Slitz, a fantastic data scientist at Credit Suisse, we are bringing this initiative live together. Here it's our Twitter account. You can also find us on LinkedIn and in social media. And here are also our emails. So please feel free to contact us should you want to speak or if you want to give us some feedback also. So as I said before, usually we have only women on stage, but for this special event, we thought that it would be cool to have like a special event for Movember and to have only men on stage. So it's like the first premiere men stage Data Plus Women event. So what is Movember for the one that doesn't know? Movember is an initiative that usually run around November where men grow a mustache in order to bring awareness on men health issue. Yeah, so it's a kind of sad topic, but you have this very nice mustache figure in order to enjoy the mood. So please, Olivia, I'll let you present the wonderful speaker that we have today and explain also how the Q&A works.
All right, thank you very much, Annabelle, for the nice introduction. So as already mentioned, my name is Olivia, and I'm helping out Annabelle to lead this Data Plus Women initiative. And as already mentioned, this time it's a very special event because for the first time we actually have two men speaking. So the first one will be Joshua and the second one will be Neil. Annabelle, if you can go to the next slide, I will talk about Joshua first. So I guess he will introduce himself later on as well. But from my side, Joshua is a news and marketing manager at Georgia Tech. I already looked at all his Tableau visits on Tableau Public. And what I can say, he's a very, let's say, experienced and a total Tableau fan and visualization expert. So I'm really looking forward for the presentation on what he's gonna say about data visualization and how he actually got into the topic, which is a very interesting story that he was just, went to a conference for Tableau and then couldn't stop anymore. Our second speaker will be Neil. And Neil works at JLL. He's the EMEA BI lead, so very interesting position. And he has been a Tableau public ambassador for a long time, and he was a Tableau Zen master. So I would actually recommend to really go onto his data blog or Viz blog, which is questionsinDataViz.com. It's really interesting what he put in there, and it's actually very interesting to read about his thoughts and to see what he's doing. So really recommend it. The way it will work now is the two speakers which I just introduced will start. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please put it into the Q&A section in your Zoom. I think it's very clear where you can put it in or just in the chat. And after each presentation, we will actually try to answer some of those questions. And if the time is up and you still have a question, you can still put it in the chat and the speakers will then try to respond during the call. And that being said, the stage is yours, Joshua, And to all the attendees, enjoy.
I stopped sharing.
Thank you,
share.
Annabelle and Olivia, thanks for inviting us out. This is kind of big shoes to fill. I hope I can entertain and inform you about how I did start my Tableau journey. So I hope you can see my screen, because we're going to start with the Death Star blowing up. I'm not a Star Wars fan, you don't get that reference, but hopefully you at least know Star Wars and the pop culture reference to the Death Star. So as Olivia said, when I discovered Tableau, I really couldn't sleep that night because it's kind of reinvigorated my career, my storytelling passion in new and different ways. So yeah, I discovered Tableau Public, which is entirely free. That's important for people to know. So I might go over things you're aware of, but I want to show you new things in Tableau Public that have come about within the past 12 months. They have regular update schedules, and just from my perspective, it's improving the user experience greatly. Really fun, interesting new ways to use Tableau. So I recommend you guys embracing your storytelling, pursuits, like coming out of your comfort zone in your workplace. If you do this all day, and you can really use Tableau to tell stories. It's just about information design. So the Death Star, I don't know if it did blow up, but it should. This is simply a data mark in Tableau in a visualization. And so I'm going to go and show you kind of my process and hopefully share with you how you can go out and get the data that will help you pursue your own storytelling passions. So we will come back to this. So taking the plunge, why do it? I view this as another way that people can share their fandom. They share, people do videos on YouTube, they create all kinds of things on social media, and not sit here and add visualizations to the conversation. And you get better. I mean, that's the bottom line. You can sit here and probably create something really engaging if you're passionate about the data. I think that goes without saying. But the question is, where do you start? You can start with things that you're interested in, and then you have to actually figure out, how do you get that data? That's probably the biggest barrier, right? So the picture on the screen is meant to say, hey, make that jump across the frozen river. Get outside comfort zone and go out into the wild. It's a little dangerous, but if you do it, you might just love it. So I do news and marketing at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia, on the eastern seaboard of the United States. So I just tell stories. I write news, but basically I decided people would pay more attention to my work if I told it in a graphical format. So I knew nothing about data analysis, like zero. My analysis skills still probably need a little help. But information design, displaying information, that was key. That was something to immediately for anybody, I think, without any background in this area could actually jump into. So here's a couple of examples. I want to move through, again, some of the capabilities of Tableau. You might be very familiar with this, but here's maybe some tips and tricks you don't know. So why not start with something hard? On the left-hand side, Katniss Everdeen, she has a prequel to her famous Hunger Game trilogy series. So I decided I would put a very custom visualization, radial chart into this visualization. It's really complex for me, at least. It might not be necessarily intuitive, but it was meant to draw people in. So the great thing about Tableau, if you want to learn something, you can make your workbooks available online. So we'll quickly go to this top right of the screen. You can go to edit, and you can, without downloading a workbook, you can see people's portfolio and learn from people. And I think that's how I've learned, and that's how I want to give back to the community, by making my work available to people who are interested. So anyway, we're trying to get to the web browser version. This is fairly new. This is fairly exciting. No software needed. In the web browser, you can see people's work, and sometimes it's slow, and that might be a result of how I built the workbook. I don't know. But basically all it is a list and the circular chart. You have an Easter egg right here. If you hover over the arrow, that's just another sheet in Tableau. So you get a lot of the I guess the same user interface that the desktop version has. So you have the dashboard and the tabs at the bottom and the different sheets that create this dashboard. So I did use Photoshop to put this giant call out up in the top right corner and use icons to draw people's attention, and obviously color. So if you really like people's work, dig in, do something that you want to do, and go in and discover how other people accomplished or pursued something similar. And I was brand new to Tableau for this dashboard right here. It's more traditional dashboard, but basically people loved or hated this new Star Wars book. And what I found out was people who listened to the audiobook loved it. People who read the book hated it. Really interesting. And again, with the ability of Tableau, I took a simple data set and pursued this without knowing how Tableau would work. If you're not familiar with the software, there's a Show Me panel. In the Show Me panel, I just started clicking around, and it created bar charts and running totals and highlight tables like this. I did want to show you how I made this actually work, the Death Star blowing up, because I mentioned to Olivia and Annabelle earlier that pictures are a great opportunity when you use pictures in Tableau, but they're just another data point, and you have to treat them like any other data point, and they have to be sized correctly, and you have to figure out how the user interaction is going to work. So there is a learning curve, and this is simply pictures. And if you hate the book, if it'll blow up, the Death Star blows up for the 1-star ratings. There you go. And so the interactivity is a hover action, dashboard action in Tableau. So I'm going to go into one workbook to kind of show you how I built it and show you something. So hopefully you'll learn about a little bit of how Tableau works. Those are more require user interaction. User interaction, you have to design your stories to say, oh, there's something to do here, right? These are more simple, and because of new function Tableau, on the left-hand side, you have an image, but you can still, no one knows this probably because it's designed just to label all the bars and basically just have something that pops out other than just a simple bar. But the one of the top mixed martial artists in the women's division in the UFC, and if we can make the browser play nice.
I think we just lost his connection, right?
Yeah.
There he's back again.
You're back.
Oh no. Where do I start?
From the woman who has like boxing, exactly.
The boxing. I won't blame Annabelle for not knowing that it's mixed martial arts, but so this athlete, again, it's a static design. Nope, you don't have to click on it. You label all the bars, but that image is a PNG file, which gives you a transparent background. And the functionality in Tableau is transparent sheets. So you can still interact with it, and the image won't prevent you from going in and see which opponents she defeated and how she defeated each opponent. So that transparent sheet, I mean, I was jumping up and down for a year when they released that. So that was a pretty significant contribution or added functionality. The other one, which I'm going forward too fast, the other one is women writers in sci-fi. This is a public data set. Again, we'll talk about how to capture public data sets. It's static. So just design your visualizations in Tableau for people who don't interact with them. And Tableau can get you there real quick when you capture the data set. These happen to be all the works that are in the public domain by famous women sci-fi authors. And the darker circles are their most highly rated work. You can actually click and go, when you interact with this, if you so choose, you can go and find the book and get it for free. Please don't pay Amazon $1 for a book that's in the public domain. Just go get it on gutenbergpress.com. So if you're a big reader. So you can do something simple and design focused. We know everybody can simply plug in a chart and get going with Tableau quickly. Or if you're not aware of that and you don't use it, again, go to Tableau Public, download it for free, and there's no code involved. So I mentioned to Annabelle that, you know, sometimes I get really worried if somebody comes after me for copyright infringement. But again, you know, they have to come after everybody on YouTube. And I know that's not the right answer. They have to come after everybody. I don't intentionally go out and grab copyrighted material, but as a fan, I'm promoting, you know, the Netflix shows for all the different Marvel shows. So it's just another way to express your love for whatever interest you have. I don't think they'll come after you, but that's a personal decision you have to make. This is a simple line chart, and obviously the headline speaks for itself. You know, is it a marvel, a good show, or is it a miss? There's some very unpopular shows on Netflix according to the fans. So draw people in, decide, make a decision. What story do you want to tell? And then just filter out all the white noise, all the other data points that aren't important, and really go for that story. That's intuitively what I've done my whole career, but doing it with data visualization has been fun. So what's Tableau doing well these days? The user experience, again, is so fun, and we will kind of try to prove a couple user experience improvements. My favorite is animations, not the Pac-Man. The Pac-Man we'll talk about in a second. But the animations within Tableau allow when you interact, it allows them to basically, instead of quickly jumping and sorting in a very just quick static fashion, and I'll show you, you can see that it actually has a really smooth transition. So it's that simple. That's it. It doesn't get better than that. But if you don't have animations, we'll go to the sheet. Again, we're editing in the web browser. Not to get too technical, but the sheet I published is really lines. These are lines, not bars. And I don't know why this happens, but when you go to the bar version of the same chart, I'm having to move my screen a little. When you go to the bar version, it animates, but it doesn't animate in the same way. If you were paying attention, it animates differently. And it's lovely. Let's just unanimate it. Go to format up here, go to animations, and you can go to off right here. It's that simple. When they added it, they made it super simple for you. And so now let's go and check it out real quick. And that's just not as cool, right? There's no transition. So anyway, we're not going to save that. We're not going to save it, and we'll go back to the presentation. The other thing is parameter actions. I was sorting the bars simply, and that's with a parameter action. I highly recommend you invest time in learning that, because that changed my Tableau world. It allowed me to, as the end user, really interact. Another very important interaction is set actions. This is the same principle as the last visualization. We can sort these books. Go back to books. You see, I like my books. These are series that authors have not finished. In the gray, you know, Game of Thrones is the biggest culprit here. George R.R. Martin needs to finish that. But then the blue series are finished. You can sort them like I did earlier with a parameter action, which is right here. And then as a user, you can make your own playlist. You can tell George R.R. Martin, you can go to the drop down. This is a set action. Again, I encourage you, and there's a link in the blog in this presentation I'll share that is a really good blog on all the new ways you can do set actions. But what this did is I essentially just added a book series. And when I added it, it didn't do anything but change the color. So the set action, kind of a different way you can interact. And you can click on the marks themselves, but I didn't feel that was the best user experience, so I still use the drop down. So you have options. You have options. Oh, it worked. So the little yellow dot showed up when you clicked on the mark itself. So set actions are great, and you have the flexibility to create the user experience you want. Again, another way to tell stories, give people control. Draw the get linked to this, so I'll share that later. All right, so that's all fine and good, but how do you do this yourself, right? Olivia kind of scared me because she said she used Python. I'm just scared of Python and code in general. So I've explored the web and I have found exactly one tool. I would love to find others. But if you basically use Importio, it's free, 500 web addresses. You can scrape 500 URLs, and it's great because that restarts every month. But let's say all your data is in exactly one URL. So real quick, just go ahead and get a free account for Importio, and it's click and go, and I'll prove it to you. So this is Julia Stiles. She's an actress. This is her IMDb page. And this looks pretty easy to grab her filmography. So we're going to take all the TV shows and movies she's been in, and we just took the URL from IMDb. Now we're going to go into Importio, and it's almost like magic. This is why I've been able to pursue so much work that I've done. I mean, this is really the secret. A lot of people might not be inclined to go out and get their own data, shape their data, and actually clean it up. And I know that's a barrier. For me, that was what was the hardest thing to figure out. So it's going to do its magic, and then it's going to complain and say, I can't do the magic. So because there's other information on that web page, and you do have to depend on the web page. All this is automated, so there's not a lot of customization, but right here, it says, go to take me to the point and click. And so we will simply, over here on the left-hand side, we'll just make this column movie, if I can spell. And then right here, you see, you can just sit here and look at the movie title, click it. And it says there's a link. So yeah, let's grab the link with it, sure. And then it only has one record. So let's go to her next movie. And then we end up failing. So I'm gonna sit here and show you the final result. That point and click, it took a while to get there. So I'm sorry about that. That didn't prove to you that this works, but it does work. Here's the preview data. So if I had not clicked out of that preview, you basically can grab anything off that page. You go to each element, it'll grab the images, it'll grab the description, it actually grab the ratings. So these elements, it's really fun. You can grab the ratings, number of ratings, average rating, how much it made. So there's an example of Importio. It does work, but I'll let you go play with that yourself. So Importio is a great tool. If there's anybody that has better tools in the chat that are free, because there's a lot of paid stuff that are heavyweight. This is really lightweight, no coding, no Python. Let us know. Okay, so give yourself a fighting chance to find an audience. I've learned that Tableau, as wonderful as it is, when you publish on the server, some of the functionality slows down. It might be that might be because of how you built the workbook, excuse me. It might be because of the server, all kinds of reasons. So a couple of things: focus on the information design, label your charts. You can have really pretty charts like this curvy timeline right here. And this is courtesy of people in the community who innovate, and they provide the templates, which is allows you to, do different and new things. And so that's why I want to, make people aware it really is a great community to learn and people actually share. But other key ingredients: have that engaging headline. Define your story for the reader. Lead them through by having call outs. This is stuff you might intuitively know, but it's even more important when people have limited time, right? And as I mentioned, have a simple UX or user experience. I'll show you really quick. This is one of my favorite and newest visualizations. It had a lot of functionality with animations, like I showed you when the bar chart earlier animated as you sorted it differently. And it had all kinds of stuff. And when I got it on the server, Tableau server, it died. And I had a moment of silence because I had to go back and rethink how I wanted this to work. So this is an Emmy award-winning show, and it's because it's a great story and because the women actually drove the story, and it's a huge ensemble cast. So I felt really compelled to go do something awesome. It took me a long time because all the IMDb data all the decision making that went into how to start, where to start with the story, how to draw people in. And so this is an introduction to this great comic book story that was adapted for TV. This is how popular it is according to 3 decades of HBO shows. So you see it's in the top 20. It's brand new. It came out last year. And HBO does really good shows. So New York Magazine says, yeah, this is one to watch, right? So you start off by pulling people in with that context, and then Tableau can give you this long format. And this is each actress's filmography. This was a labor of love. These are individual sheets with their TV careers. Obviously, the show we're focusing on, Watchmen, is in yellow. And these are all little individual charts. But then I had to replicate them for each actress. And I did kind of pull my hair out. I really don't have hair, but what was left of it, because I had floating elements. I had all kinds of stuff going on. But again, Tableau allowed me to filter and duplicate each sheet for each actress. So as long as I filtered correctly and I used the tiling system, because you can tile these, you can measure the pixels. Tableau really is getting to a point where I'm not saying it has the abilities of any Adobe creative products, but if you have skills of creating content of any type in other places, you can pull those in to Tableau, and Tableau has this interactive component that none of those other programs have, right? So that's why it's a new way to tell stories. So this is available to you if you want to go in and actually play with it. But really, I had to go back and kill a lot of my interactivity. But we still have good interactivity in that visualization if people are compelled. But you don't want people to get frustrated and kind of be annoyed, because all that work will go to waste. If you put in all the bells and whistles and say, people, just play around with it, it'll work. You can't expect people to do that. So just limit it to the essential interactive elements, and then test. So also give your work that you're passionate about, try to help people understand it's interactive. So use a GIF. This is not the best example of a GIF, but basically it's, again, an actress and her filmography, and you can animate GIFs through Photoshop and other platforms. And I should probably have a better example, but you can see if you go to different genres, it highlights, the dots become bigger for each of her different movies within a genre. I have to give a shout out to Data Wrapper. We've been talking about Tableau because that's all I use, but Data Wrapper is another data viz tool. This picture of Jennifer Lawrence, the American actress, is actually a bar chart. And so in the footer, I'll try to, again, I think it's available, but the footer shows you how you can make a bar chart within Data Wrapper. And she was kind enough, the creator is Elena Levin Schultzberg, if I got that right, from Data Wrapper. She is kind enough to share how she did it and actually the code. So bar chart pictures, kind of cool. Just want to give a shout out to Data Wrapper. So Pitfalls, you guys have seen a lot of stuff that, has Star Wars logos of other companies. So as long as you're not making money and you're not trying to, sit here and do something crazy, I think you can be safe to go find your passion and use visual elements, that spruce up your different charts and whatnot. And then scraping the data. If you go back and update your visualization, how easy will it be? This is a bump chart that shows different fictional characters and they're fighting each other. So it's like a fictional cage fight. Who wins? Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Rings versus, I don't know. There's nobody else that's super famous here, but Gandalf the Grey should win regardless. And would I update this? It might be hard. So it's not super hard if you have the data, but you do have to depend on external sources or update the data on your own. So there's lots of ways to say, is this going to be a one-time thing or should we keep on going and update this? Resources. Wikipedia has tons of tables. I give $1 to Wikipedia, I think, every year. I should probably give more. You might have mixed opinions on their data veracity, how good their data is, but the tables in Wikipedia are great. So there's a starting point. Kaggle, Data World, Google's data set search, people, this is flying under the radar, but Google has a data set search that's separate from their regular search. And it leads you often to Kaggle and Statista and other places. So I encourage you to go there, because it's it might be something on a night when you're bored. You can find a data set real easy. And we already covered Importio, and that is the only scraping service that's consistent for me. This year has been kind of a crapshoot. The silver lining is you're stuck at home and can maybe pursue some more passion projects. But before everything went south, as they say it here in America, we had everybody doing end of the decade list, favorite movies, favorite songs. It was like taking candy from a baby. So all these lists were published on the internet, and I used scraping tools to find the best songs from Stereo Gum. The source for this best of 2010 songs is Stereo Gum. So I don't feel bad that I missed a decade's worth of music, because I got to listen to it when I did this viz. And I'm a video game nerd, so it was great to see. This list, and this is a simple line chart, staggered line chart. So go out and find your data set. They're out there, and hopefully you've learned a little bit. This is the end of the presentation and the beginning of your journey into pop culture visiting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope all the attendees, including the panelists, are getting inspired a little bit and start doing their Tableau visits right away after this talk. So to all the attendees, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A box.
It was very interesting. Yeah? Thank you, Joshua. We had a lot of comments in the chat saying that it was awesome, but that we already knew. Do we have some question? Because otherwise I already have a question for Joshua, myself. Joshua, why are you always whizzing about women? Because I like you with visits in general, but the one about women, I think they are very, very good.
Well, so you and the short answer is it's International Women's Awareness Month. You know, there's a celebration every month for all kinds of things, like this month is November. Thanks for putting a focus on November this month. But International Women's Month at work, the short story is we had a lot of great opportunities to share our heroines, you know, not heroes, they're heroines. And people, I put out a survey, people weren't biting, they weren't engaged. And that happened to be the month this past year, 2019, where Captain Marvel came out. And that was the first Marvel movie that was solely, that was led by a woman. So a lot of good synergy around saying, hey, here's an opportunity. I'm never one to miss an opportunity. And that's where it started. So I finally got people to participate International Women's Month. And I was like, you know, this is really cool. And so with personal topics of interest, famous women authors, sci-fi authors, Time Magazine did, there's one I did not show, I really wish I would have shown, but Time Magazine did 100 covers of women in history, and it covered the Me Too movement, suffrage. So it's just interesting that the data is out there and I get to learn more. And so there's no particular interest in visiting about women. I just happen to like, there's artists that I want to find out more about, and some of them are women. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have other question, Olivia?
Yeah, I'm looking, but I think.
One question just popped up.
So there is a question. What is the starting point of creating a story in Tableau?
Ooh, okay. I have to give the short answer to this one too. I showed you a couple of like when things that I care about when like a new book is released or a movie is released. And there's a lot of free data on the internet that you just have to find and kind of make that commitment to saying, is there an analysis here? Is there something I care about? And can I focus the story? So you sit here and honestly, I do care if people, you know, look at if they they enjoy it themselves, but I care more about saying, here's what I think is interesting. And so it's like if you're having a conversation with anybody, you swap stories, you swap your favorite parts of, a movie or whatever, anything in life, the stuff, funny stuff your kids do. So if you're a self-quantified person, I think you call them, and you measure things, you can measure your own life, anything you want to, or find stuff on the internet and just answer your own questions. So obviously it helps that there's something out there that people are talking about. So when Star Wars is doing something, I'm like, all right, is there something to visualize with Star Wars? And I do that. So I don't know if that's like a specific entry point that you can go with. But that's how I do it. And it's easy. Tableau makes it so easy. I just can't reiterate that enough. It's free. I will say, if you're not aware, Tableau Prep is a new data cleaning tool, but it only comes with Tableau desktop or enterprise license, which is unfortunate. So I still have to cut my teeth on data cleaning inside Excel, which I'm glad I started there. I'm not going to lie to you, not knowing how any of this worked. I'm glad I learned some Excel functions, but don't be heartened if the data is not totally clean. If you look up,
Okay. Thank you very much for giving us advice. I can relate to the fact that data cleaning is not your favorite activity with Excel. So if there aren't any other questions, you still have time to put in any other questions now during the next presentation in the chat. So your chat is not over yet. But I guess we will continue with Neil. So looking forward to your presentation.
All right, let me share my screen then. And we should be good to go. So thank you very much. I'm here to talk about, well, my talk is called Celebrate the Unnecessary. I'll probably cover the same kind of principles that Josh has spoken about, because he's spoken a lot about just having fun when you visualize and what you're passionate about. I think maybe the difference is Josh just said that he's really into visiting what people are talking about. I'm probably into visiting what absolutely nobody is talking about, but we'll see if there's any more similarities as we go through the talk. Okay, this is my sort of introduction. I won't read it out. Particularly, thank you for introducing me earlier, Olivia. So maybe while this is up, I'll just say something particular about Data Plus Women. I love the initiative. I quite often turn up to Data Plus Women because you always have great people involved there. And there's different Data Plus Women chapters all around Europe and all around the world. And I think Heidi Kalber in Germany and maybe Emily in the States also said they've made it very clear that it's really inclusive. It's data plus women, and that it really does a great job of promoting and encouraging women, but it's not data minus men. So we've always felt welcome. I'm delighted this is a rare chance to come along and actually talk. So thank you so much, Annabelle, for asking me along. And hopefully you got a chance to read about all that Zen Master stuff. Okay, this is a bit of a random photo to start with, but it kind of summarizes my career. So how does it do that? This is a Tableau user group 3 or 4 years ago in Nottingham in the UK. Now, I love Tableau and I love the community, so I've always been to all sorts of user groups. And in this one, I'm in the front row and I'm watching Simon Beaumont, who was talking about amazing work that he was doing down in the hospital in Southampton in the UK. And he was telling us how he really gets to energize his analysts with all the different programs that he's introduced. And I was there with my phone and I was paying attention. I was pretending to take a photo of Simon, but really I was thinking, oh, cool wallpaper. I wonder if I can make a viz that looks a bit like that. It looks a bit like a piano keyboard. I'm not sure. I'll file that away for an idea. And all right, this many years on, I've still never done a viz that looks like that. But I've sort of made a name for myself by just sort of being inspired by strange things, or by things that I see, by patterns that I see, by other people's work, by inspirations, and just thinking, what kind of data might fit that pattern? What can I do that sort of has the same sort of creative ideas? So I love to talk about design, about creativity, and all that kind of thing. And Tableau have been very generous to me. They've recognized this, and my path has sort of gone through to being an ambassador and a Zen master through these kind of talks and through the kind of things I produce. But we've kind of come full circle, because I was paying attention that day. And I'm now working at JLL, and I work closely with Simon. We're both Zen masters now, and he has done some amazing work right there. And I get to help implement some of the things that he's doing at JLL too as well. So it's kind of a nice circular story. All right, let's start with the boring stuff. This is a necessary visualization. If you're in the UK, you've seen a lot of stuff like this. I guess if you're in different countries in Europe and in the US, wherever you're listening from, you probably get to see a lot of stuff like this, and it's on TV briefings. I'm not going to critique this. I've seen better. I've seen a lot worse. But people are now getting used to data visualizations like this. It's really come into the forefront of our lives, and that never happened before. We really think there's a lot of necessary stuff going on. And if you're visualizing COVID, you better get it right. You better get the right, most accurate data. You better really be sort of showing it in a good way. And yeah, here's another data viz type that a lot of us might have seen rather a lot. So many different ways of visualizing the US election, which are really full of on our screens. It's made superstars of the people in the US and CNN who show these things. And it's a really clear visual way of making it really obvious that the blues add up to more than reds and have won. You'd have to be an idiot not to think that's the case. But aside from all that, it's really, whether it's COVID or whether it's a US election, you might be completely exhausted of this by now. You might think, well, I don't really want to join in with that. There's enough of that. It's so important. It's so necessary. It's even sort of, it even means my own mum knows what I do for a living now. And that's never really been the case. I can actually say, all those charts and those maps that you see on TV, that's what I do. And that's what I teach others how to do, or that's what I work with others to do. Okay, sometimes we do it a bit better than what you see on TV, but that's essentially what I do. So I'm so delighted that all these, what I say, necessary data visualizations have brought our industry to the fore. But what I want to talk about was sort of prompted by this, which is a book by Andy Kirk, who you might know from, he's the man behind visualizingdata.com. And he produced this book. You can't really see it. It's a big old thick book, about 200 pages, all about Seinfeld, a 90s sitcom, which I guess is his favorite. And he made a real sort of personal project out of it, a sort of passion project. He wanted to look into all the data that he had, and to look at all the every individual episode. It's all about the jokes, the people who are in it, the laughter tracks, the makeup of it. 200 pages of what he describes as a completely unnecessary data exploration. And I thought, I love that idea. I'm going to get rid of these. And Andy sent one of his books to me. And this was the letter he sent. And at the top it said, "Hello, Newman. I'm delighted to send you this," etc., etc., etc. I thought, oh, I'm so glad I've got the book, and it's all gone to a great charitable cause. But I sent a DM to Andy. I said, "Oh, thank you. I can't wait to get into it. I think you sent me the letter to the wrong guy. I'm Neil. I don't know who Newman is. Maybe they were next to each other on your sheet." And he sort of politely sent it back to me and said, "Actually, that's a really famous catchphrase from the show. That's what the main character says to the other character." And I kind of outed myself as someone, I didn't know the first thing about Seinfeld. I'd seen 1 or 2 episodes, but that had gone over my head. And even so, I still thought this sounds like a cool book to have. It was going to be fun data visualizations about what people aren't talking about something completely unnecessary, about something that I could just have, I could just dive into when all the COVID stuff is on the TV. So it made me think, actually, I think I probably do quite a lot of unnecessary data visualization. And I'm rather pleased that I do. I have an important job at work. I certainly don't want to be getting too involved in some of the public stuff that's out there. So why not just sort of admit and celebrate that, it's the unnecessary stuff that you can really get joy from. And you can tell that Andy got joy from doing this, his personal project. So I want to show some slides. These are by Lisa Charlotte Ross. Lisa is a great data viz blogger. She now works at Data Wrapper, so they've had 2 shout outs today. They do some great stuff, and she has done gave a talk all about the different goals of data visualization a few years ago, and she has put them into sort of 3 categories, if you like: attention and beauty, understanding, and implication. And then down below, those are the kind of elements of getting each of those things from your database. And in fact, Andy Kirk as well, in his book, he basically does the same thing, but he'll say the thing on the left is the perceiving, and then you've got interpreting in the middle for understanding, and then you've got comprehending. So that third one is really the so what. So what do I do with this? You know, where do I take it? But what Lisa makes very clear is that depending on what your goal is, depending on what your role is, who you are, you're going to give different priorities to each of those 3 circles. And your ideal viz is going to have all of those maybe, but you're going to have different priorities. So let's say you want to do something that's data art. You're going to have a pretty big circle to start with on attention and beauty. You want to get people in, and you want to sort of create something that's really beautiful. But you're going to do that a little bit at the expense of understanding. People might not really understand how you created it, and that might not really matter. You want your biggest thing to be, perhaps the feelings that people get from it. Whereas the other way around, let's say you're doing a business slide or data journalism, something like that, the attention and beauty, you don't want it to be sort of over grabbing of attention. You really need to make sure that understanding and then as a result implication are the biggest things from it. So it's almost as if you sort of allocated a certain number of points that you can give to each of these. We can't sort of do all 3. So if you're going to do your business slides, understanding is absolutely key. And then pretty key as well to have the implication. So what, what's the proof? What actions do I need to go and take? So I kind of copied one of Lisa's slides here, and I thought, well, what are my goals when I do unnecessary data viz? We can't have 3 big circles. And partly, maybe you're just doing something that looks nice. You want to attract people into it, create something that you think is beautiful. You need to do a little bit on the understanding side of things. But my work, I need to make sure that it is driven by data. So I might think of the design first, but the underlying data it's important to me to explain how that is creating the design, but that might be a bit of hard work. And then implication, that's the unnecessary bit. Sometimes it's so what? Let's go back to Andy's example. So episode 2, season 19 had the highest rating. So what? It can evoke joy in who's creating it, and maybe a bit of fun in who's watching it. But you don't always have to have that implication, so long as you realize, you acknowledge that what you're doing is not sort of overly important data viz. It's unnecessary data viz. Let's celebrate these. All right, and a few quotes. I love this quote by Amanda Cox, who was at the New York Times Interactive for some while. I think she's now at Google. We all know this is probably true. You can do everything in a bar chart, and sometimes you probably should when you don't. And she says, all right, there's a strand of the data viz world. That's probably true, but that's also a world without joy. Who actually wants to create these all of the time? Who actually wants to see these all the time? And there's a perfect valid answer. If there's 20 of you out there going, me, that's right, that's okay, and that's what you should be doing if you're doing business charts, etc., etc. But sometimes, I don't know, or what sort of appeals to me are the things that aren't these sort of standard bar charts, that do create a bit of joy, even if it's just me in creating them. So I love that. And this kind of follows on as well. I saw this from Nadia Bremer, another one of my data viz heroes, if you like. And she was talking about something that a guy called Santiago Ortiz had said a few days before. Essentially, I know graphs should be easy to read, but I don't actually want to do that. I'm happy for people to have to put the effort in, and then they can see what I've done. They can see what I was thinking. They can see the detail that I wanted to put in, and they can maybe get a better reward from it. Now, again, we don't class this as a COVID chart that we put on TV or something, but in many sort of data visualization fields, then that's what you want to think about. It's okay to ask your viewer to put in that little bit of effort. So armed with those and armed with those ideas as well from Lisa, and armed with the idea of an unnecessary data viz from Andy, that's what I want to go and sort of talk about. I want to talk about why then. Why would you actually do it? I've sort of hinted that I really rather quite like them, but why would you do it? And what do they allow you to do? Why have I gone with an unnecessary color palette to talk about unnecessary data visualizations? I have no answer to that. I have no taste. And what I suppose if this was a normal talk, I would go through and I'd go through this list and I'd maybe come through sort of 5 or 6 different things. And I'm going to do that, but I'm sort of going to show you them all at once, because a lot of visualizations, or a lot of, you call them unnecessary or not, or these kind of projects, they tick off 2, 3, 4 of these boxes each. So I'm going to talk about, celebrate nostalgia, but take inspiration, dive deep, learn new stuff. You can go light touch, be unconventional. You can apply pretty much all of these things to any data viz, whether you call that unnecessary. So well, here's nostalgia. I did a viz all about Mr. Men, which were very sort of well-known children's books. They were a Dr. Seuss equivalent in the UK. And I had great fun doing this book, and it reminded me of all of these, and it reminded me, did I have all of these? Which ones were they? And all I've shown here is what color they were and what color their noses were in relation to their to their faces and their hats and their feet and things like that. But I had great fun doing this, and people had fun consuming this. This is on posters in people's walls now. And I enjoyed it so much. I've done it for Muppets, I've done it for cartoons, I've done it for Simpsons, I've done it for 1 or 2 others, I can't remember. It's the ultimate completely unnecessary visualization. I visualized names and colors, and that's pretty much it. But it gave me joy to do it because of being able to sort of think nostalgically about something I used to love. And here's something from Marianne Ahrens, who has done something just a lot more stylishly and elegantly than I've done, but I think probably had a similar kind of idea. Just looking at Tintin and looking at all the different book covers and just nostalgically being able to look back and just show them. What is it showing me analytically? Not a lot apart from colors, but that's okay. You can enjoy it without feeling you need to have that kind of analytic layer. Take inspiration. So much of what I do harks back to that picture at the tug. I'm taking inspiration from patterns and work and just other visits that I see. Here are 2. This is from a lady called Saskia Freek. I'm so sorry. There are so many European ladies who I take influence from, who I'm not sure I'm pronouncing their names properly, but Saskia is from the Netherlands, and she has this, she creates a geometric drawing art piece every day, and has done for about 5 years, I think. Comes regularly into my Twitter feed every day, and you can see it on her webpage as well. And every so often I take screen grabs of these and I think I could make a viz that looks like that. I don't know what yet, but just think how I could encode that. What could I make the colors? What could I make the shapes? What could I make the angles? What could I make the positioning on the grid? And I have history. I saw this, you can see me, I can do air quotes, artwork on a hotel in Manchester one morning, and thought I could do a viz like that. And then a week or 2 later, the next Makeover Monday of Irish whiskey sales was visualized to look like that. So I love seeing shapes and patterns and thinking, I don't want to recreate that exactly, but I want to use inspiration from that to give me ideas of what I can encode, what could be a measure, what could be a dimension, what the different things could be. And I don't really mind if you're not going to see an awful lot from it, if it's not too analytic. I think you're going to, I hope, get a good visceral reaction from it. This is from Sonia Kuipers, and I've used her inspiration so many different times. This both inspired me to do a sort of type of visualization, but it also gave me the idea. This is Hotel New Hampshire, which is her favorite book. And it made me think, you could look at a book or you can look at an album, and you can look at every individual chapter or every individual element, and it doesn't matter how much fun or how artistic you decide to make the visualizations, you can really, you can see them side by side, and by splitting these up and sort of seeing things from side to side and really sort of categorizing things in certain ways, there's nothing really stopping you. This, I think, mentions every character and what they're saying, and I think there's even animal noises on different circular shapes there. It's fantastic, and it's like Andy's sitcom. I don't know the book, but I keep going back to this and just sort of enjoying the content. So that made me think, right, I want to do something geometrical. I want to visualize my favorite book. And so this is what I did just recently, and it inspired the idea of a totally unnecessary visualization. I went back to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I read when it first came out in 1980, and I've sort of read ever since. And the first thing to say is, even in doing a viz like this, it meant I went back and I read the book again, and I got all the words, and I decided to parse them how I parsed them, and then assign them all to the different characters. And I had to come up with a fairly complex way of explaining what do each semicircle, each quarter circle, each color, each rotation, what do they mean? So I've assigned them to all the characters, and whether they were the first or second, third, fourth most speaking there. And can you read that and see it instantly? No, you can't. You have to make some effort to encode that, and it's kind of unnecessary, but I don't mind, because it's a really fun geometrical way, and I don't have the talent or the ability or the creativity to come up with something like Saskia did to start with. I have to use Tableau and I have to use data, and it just opens that window for me to be able to create something which I had a lot of fun with, and I'm able to sort of hopefully encourage others that they might want to do something similar or very different, but with those kind of principles in mind. I'm going to speed up here. I've got lots more to show. You can dive deep into something. By that I say you can dive really deep. Earlier this year, I had a CD, and I chose that's showing my age, a CD. I just wanted to visualize it, and I didn't really know how. And this viz had been sat in an unsaved workbook for months, and I was literally just looking at all the words, and that was it, and their sizes. And it was simple, and I thought it looked quite cool, but I thought, it's a bit unnecessary. Do I even want to sort of publish that? And I thought, if I really want to sort of get something fun from it, if I want to sort of dive into it a bit more, why not see how many ways I can visualize this album? And I set myself the challenge of doing it 31 days, or do it every day in May. Fortunately or unfortunately, the first one and then the second one had already set my color scheme. So I've already broken the rules of however many you want in a color palette. I've got 19 colors going on here, but I'm going to embrace that and just sort of put out some fun stuff and some unnecessary stuff. Do we need to know how often they said the word whistling, and that Constantinople was really common, but it was only in one song? There's an obvious reason for that. But it didn't matter. I was off and running, and there were so many interesting things that I could visualize, and they were all completely unnecessary. Don't worry, I'm not going to do all 31. I decided to step out of my comfort zone of Tableau, because I thought, I can't always do that. So I used Flourish to do a chord chart for the first time ever. I started to look at other music vizzes. So this is by Tiziana Alocci. I apologize if that's not how you say her name. And she'd already visualized an obscure German album with the bottom right image there on the cover. So I thought, well, I can do that. Let's take all the words, let's make it radial. Let's get something that approaches that. This is one of my favorites of mine. I looked at the repetition of words, and were they repeating a lot and they're going to curve around this way, or were they sort of quite different and they're going to curve around that way? And I got sort of completely individual Hydra kind of images for every song. I'm going to break this one up as well and say, learn new stuff. I already told you about how I learned the new way of making chords. I learned how to do a stream diagram like this. I used raw graphs. I thought I could never do that in Tableau. It's too complicated. And in this, I looked at the different structures of the songs. Are they, which parts of the intro, which parts of the chorus, which parts of the outro, etc. I looked at the length of each song, and I decided to do something a little bit more stylized there. Again, I'm imitating. I even went down to individual letters. I even went, how unnecessary is this? The Scrabble score of every single word. The great thing about this, yes, I had fun. The band themselves saw this and retweeted it the other week. That's mad. That's completely unnecessary. They didn't know that shipwreck and confidentially were the biggest scoring words. Well, they do now. Not really as important or necessary as COVID scores, but it's a really great way of doing a deep dive into a subject. A few more, I found a chance to use flourish for a dendrogram there. And I took other inspiration as well. I've always wanted to sort of look at some of the stuff that Steph Posifek does. This was emulating something she did in an earlier visualization for OK Go there. And again, this is just letter frequencies. My favorite thing about this is a 5 by 5. There's 25. They never used the letter Q in any of their words at all. A completely unnecessary fact for you, but that made that visualization a little bit easier for me. And I was able to do a sort of a color version of Oddity Viz inspired visualization. I could talk for so much longer about that, but it's a great data art piece by Valentina De Filippo and Miriam Quick, all about so many different ways, but the inspiration they took from the David Bowie Space Oddity song. And so I was able to use this rather daft 90s CD and come up with something in my eyes a bit more colorful, but similar, looking at repeated word chunks. And also you can go light touch. You know, we're talking about things that aren't important, so you really don't have to go too overly highbrow with your visualization. So Exhibit A. If you want to look at that burning subject that's been on your mind for 40 years, which letters are most common in Sesame Street, I just decided to go with this and had some great fun emulating Big Bird. And yeah, there's analysis there. You can see, you know, which is the most common letter, which most common number, but have fun, do something unnecessary, and just don't feel that you have to sort of show it in an overly, I guess this is one that proves that, yeah, you can do everything with a bar chart. Well, I can say you can also do anything with Big Bird's face. That's probably not going to get quite so many quotes. And here's one. This is from Laura Sanford. Now, Laura Sanford and Adam Green are both doing an alphabet project at the moment, and they're challenging each other every week. Take a letter and do a fun, light touch data visualization. This doesn't do Laura's much justice, really, because you're supposed to be able to click on that, and she does beautiful animation where the unicorn morphs into the rhino, and so there's some great Tableau skill there. And I love this because I love rhinos, and this is giving it a great sort of call to action and thinking, well, you know, we might think of these mythical unicorns, but, you know, don't forget rhinos, which are perilous and very real. And the other part of this project, Adam, he put a quote in a blog post just a couple of days ago, and it really echoes what I think about, you know, some of these visits that I do. I've repeatedly questioned, should I be doing this light touch stuff? You know, these are emotional times. I said, well, I needed the distraction, and maybe others did too. Yeah, I did, and that's why I'm visualizing Big Bird and silly albums and things like that. It's really good just to embrace the unnecessary. And finally, I said be unconventional. Yeah, most of my stuff's unconventional, I admit that, but often, you know, I also mean you can visualize unconventional things. So here, I'm visualizing notes of music. That's it. Notes, lengths, pitches of music in Holst planets. I've decided to see, you know, can you see different patterns in the different planets? I guess you probably can. I just want to make something which I think is great and unnecessary, and it hopefully gives you a really pleasing reaction. And similarly, and again, I'm racing through, there's probably not a more geometric piece of music than Pachelbel's Canon. I had great fun sort of determining that actually, well, it's the lament of most cellists, those notes in the middle that they always play every 8 notes, repeat, repeat, repeat on cycle. But there's all sorts of patterns that you can see in the tunes and the melodies and the themes outside. So I've really, you know, gone into the unnecessary by I'm visualizing notes and pitches. And here you can visualize mathematical numbers. I had so much fun with this, and I had so much help with my friend Michelle Gaudet here, who sort of kept my feet on the ground while I was sort of wondering what I could viz. She really helped me in the technical stuff on actually how to viz some of this. So we had a great partnership, and it just worked. I got lucky here by just sort of finding that the different patterns in numbers would allow you to do sort of random walks. And because all fractions repeat with, you know, sometimes they repeat after 7 numbers, after 3, after 5, after loads, you've got all sorts of different shapes emulating different patterns depending on the number 1 to 100. And you can investigate that a lot more if you look into that. But again, you know, you can really think outside the box on what you want to visualize. You don't even have to have data if your data is just a number, a decimal point, a musical note. So I'm going to finish with a roll call. I was just thinking about this afternoon. I was thinking, I do so much stuff, and people think it's really fun and interesting and creative, and I get so much pleasure from that. But these are all people I've just mentioned in today's talk that I've been inspired by, that I agree with, that I've borrowed their ideas, etc. And there's 4 amazing men on the right there, and I can't even count them. There's so many amazing women on the left, and that wasn't deliberate. I didn't think, well, hang on, I must, you know, I must talk about lots of women because where I am. That's just the fact that I'm just so amazed by the talent and inspiration that I get from many of the women in data visualization. You know, maybe the mindset of the particularly sort of creative things that I like to do really sort of resonates with more women than men. I don't know. I'm just mentioning Annabelle there as well. Thank you, Annabelle, for inviting me onto this. I'm really excited about it. I've loved Annabelle's work ever since she started by visualizing the different types of cheese in France by telling the story from the point of view of a mouse. I then moved on to telling the golden age of Hollywood through a raven called Jimmy. And I just think that's genius. And the fact that I still remember those makes me think that if you can just bring in what you might think is unnecessary, I just think it adds that extra bit of fun, and it adds to the memorability of what you're watching. And so that's why I'm delighted to come and talk at your event here, Annabelle. And once again, say a big thank you to all those who've influenced me on that screen. And thank you to everyone else for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. It was very inspiring and very nice talk. And I wanted to add a little note. And thank you again, because you were informed very late, and you take the challenge to be our second speaker today. So thank you very much.
No, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
I am a big fan. I have a CAD fan members. So I think that we have a question, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you very much for the inspiration. It really looks like art, to be honest. I could hang it above in my living room, your Tableau visits. It looks like that. Really nice.
You should start like a commerce.
Yeah.
And sell UVs like a poster with delivery in Switzerland.
Well, what I always say is that Tableau, it allows me to do that, because if you saw me just try and draw a picture, I could do a stick man and that would probably be it. And even then I'd get the number of legs wrong. I'm the least artistic person ever. I used to get into all sorts of trouble at school. But if I have an idea or an inspiration, and if I have data, I can use Tableau to do something that sometimes comes out artistic, sometimes it doesn't. You don't see those ones. And so I found, that's why you can see I get quite excited about coming and talking about these things. It's Tableau and data visualization has given me that platform.
Yeah, no, looks beautiful, I have to say. So we have 2 questions. And the first question is, do you work with stereotypes in data visualization, like color red equals caution to attract more attention? Or are you trying to think completely out of the box?
I would say, I do try and follow rules on color. Now, one rule about stereotypes that I'm particularly keen to avoid is the male-female stereotype. And funnily enough, Lisa Charlotte Russell is going to get mentioned for a 3rd time today. She's done some amazing work on sort of looking into all different ways of showing male versus female without just going pink and blue. I think other stereotypes, it's kind of worth persevering with. If you're trying to decide, I don't know, what do I want for hot and what do I want for cold? You want to do something reddish for hot and bluish for cold, or what do I want for good and what do I want for bad? You might be looking at sort of greenish versus reddish, but obviously you want to sort of consider colorblind considerations in there as well. But once it goes on to the more unnecessary side of things, so for example, when I did the flood visualization, the album, I made the decision I'm going to color all 19 tracks differently. And it's not a stereotype, but it's a pretty hard and fast rule in good data visualization. You shouldn't have too many colors in. You perhaps shouldn't have more than 5, 7 or 8 at a push. I broke that rule, and I sort of broke it for the point of view of impact, if you like. I know that people are going to struggle. Which song is that dark red to that slightly brighter red? If they take time, they can decode it, and that's fine. I don't mind people taking a little bit of extra time. But for visual impact and for so what and for fun, sometimes you choose to break some of those rules.
Makes sense to me. The other question was, what tools do you use aside from Tableau?
So I use Tableau mostly. Interestingly, for the data prep side of things, I use almost nothing. I use Excel and copy and paste. I haven't learned Alteryx yet. I haven't learned how to scrape using import.io. A lot of my projects started with a lot of manual input. And so and you sort of don't mind that if you're having fun. So, I mean, I manually inputted every word of that album, for example, from websites and fan pages and things, and copied and pasted it, and then pivoted it around in Excel to have it at all sorts of different levels. And so if it's a project you're having fun with, you don't mind doing it on a Sunday afternoon while you're watching the TV or something like that, that's kind of okay. So from the data prep side of things, yeah, it's mostly manual, the work that I do, and with the sort of fairly remedial Excel skills. In the actual visualizations, 95% Tableau. I try and dabble in some other things, and probably most of the other things I dabbled in, I showed in that talk. Then I said, look, I've had a go at raw graphs to do this. I've had a go at Flourish to do this, etc. So I do sort of encourage people to use that. If it can do something much easier than it can in Tableau, because why make things harder for yourself? But I do also enjoy the challenge of doing stuff in Tableau as well. I have on my list all these other things to try and learn, but these things take time, and I always keep coming back to Tableau.
Interesting to hear that many people are actually using Excel for the data preparation, and that it works so well.
Yeah, it's not the fastest, but it's what I'm familiar with,
yeah.
And it's been okay for me.
Totally agree.
And Niels, you mentioned that you use Flourish, right, for this 31-day visualization.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you check out Data Wrapper and Flourish and raw graphs and things like that, they're all great out-of-the-box examples for things which are far from out of the box in Tableau. So things like those radial dendrogram, what else? The stream graph, Sankey's, things like that. Worth checking out, particularly for maybe just something static or something that you just want to show or pull into a presentation or a screenshot like that. It's well worth knowing that these things are out there.
So we got another question. If I wanted to recreate 28 views, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, what would I need to do and know, especially with the shapes and placement?
Well, so what, if you wanted to recreate like kind of the viz, or if you wanted to recreate it in lots of different ways? Well, I suppose I can answer them both. I was rushing through. I sort of didn't go through in detail the legend at the bottom, which kind of explained what each of them did. But I sort of took my lead from the graphic that I was trying to copy, as much as I thought there's a lot of quarter circles and half circles in here. They seem to be in all four or in different sort of positions of rotation. So if I'm sort of trying to emulate something, I'll look at the different ways things are encoded, and then I'll think, right, what have I got in my data? What different things can I come up with in my data which could be a dimension? So it might be the chapter of the book, it might be the person who's talking, it might be the person who's being talked to, it might be have they spoken most in the chapter or least in the chapter, things like that. And in some of my talks, I talk about this thing quite a lot, you know, just sort of trying to think of a design first. And it's not necessarily the way you should do it, but it's a great way of sort of learning creative methods. Try and think of design first and then think, have I got the metrics or the dimensions that will kind of fit that? So, I mean, I've made cricket scores look like album covers and things like that, just by thinking, right, well, I could use the length of those lines as the scores they've used. I could use the position round for the partnerships, etc., etc. So it's really an exercise in thinking, how many different ways can I categorize this data? And you know, I was almost tempted to do 28 ways of looking at the hitchhiker. I thought, well, if I've done 31 days of an album, can I do this 28 ways of looking at a book? In the end, I thought, no, I'll settle for one. I'll settle for something which I think probably is something I wanted to do, which is a viz that looked like Saskia's graphic art things there. But really, the world is your oyster. You know, once you've decided, I want to do this, just to learn the tool, to do something creative, then really, and similar to what Josh has said, find a data set, take any data set. Sometimes it's data set you curate yourself. Sometimes it might be data sets that are really available out there, and then just see which different ways that you can break them down, and then think, right, what can I do geometrically with that, and how can I make Tableau do it?
Thank you so much for all the advice. I think I can not only speak for myself, but I was definitely being inspired today. And now that during COVID times, I have more time to spend at home, I can actually accept the challenge and do some data visualization trials. So I guess this also is the same for all the participants here. I think we're slowly coming to the end. If there are no open questions, I very much enjoyed it. I think Annabelle still has some words for the next events to get even more inspired. And I hope you enjoyed the session. And thank you to the speakers who were amazing today.
So I'm very jealous, Neil and Joshua, because you managed to inspire Olivia to do some visualization, which I couldn't do it in the last 3 years.
Well, you say that you need to check. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will check. So so thank you very much to both of us, because it was a very, very good session, and you put so much energy on it, and thank you very much. Our next event, I will send you all the attendees an email soon with our next with the links to be able to register, because in December we will be quite busy, let's see. We will have like a Data Plus Women global chapter. So all the different chapter in Europe, Zurich, Paris, London, Amsterdam, and I'm sure that I forgot some of them, will go together and create like a piece of a session. So it's a European one. It will be a special one on the 1st of December. Then for the one who speaks Spanish and Portuguese, we will have like our Data Plus Women LATAM with 3 special guests from the data journalism. Even for the one who doesn't speak Spanish and Portuguese, you can join, you can see the beautiful picture. I'm sure you will be able to understand. And we will have our Data Plus Women Zurich one Christmas special, the 10th of December. And I can already tell you that we have like topics about chocolates. So stay tuned. And yeah, of course, for Zurich, chocolate is very important. I think once I visual my own chocolate consumption. So yeah, now the session is finished. You can still stay, and we will make the Zoom available for you, and but we will stop the recording. So if you want to stay, you can stay, and yeah. Olivia, can you stop the